Hey, you awesome folks! Thanks for taking this journey of discovery with your guide, Keith Haney. You're listening to the Becoming Bridge Builders podcast, your favorite podcast for everything from racial reconciliation to education innovation, justice reform, and leading change in the 21st century. This podcast is for people who love to be challenged with difficult topics, but want practical solutions to solve these challenging issues. Becoming Bridge Builders makes change possible. Each week on the podcast, Keith invites innovative thought leaders to share how they are building bridges in their area of expertise. You will hear breakthrough ideas and concepts that are changing the world. He's featuring guests who are best-selling authors, leaders at Microsoft, entrepreneurs, leading educators, professors, lawyers, and so many more. Listen in to learn how you can be the bridge to the change you are seeking.
Welcome to Becoming Bridge Builders, the podcast where we explore stories, strategies, and insights that help us connect, lead, and build bridges in our community and workplaces. I am your host, Keith Haney. Today we have an extraordinary guest joining us, Arlene Cohen Miller. Arlene is the CEO of Jewel Consultancy, a work-life harmony and leadership coach who empowers women to lead themselves compassionately and wholeheartedly. She's a professional certified coach with an Intentional Coaching Federation, an AV-related Colorado attorney, and a certified meditation facilitator with a diploma in transformational holistic consulting from Australia. Her mission, helping women create lives that truly work and feel right for them. Arlene, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to have you on. This should be an exciting conversation. I'm looking forward to learning about what you do and how you help people. So this is going to be fun.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you.
I just want to clarify one thing. I do work a lot with women, but I do work with men too. So
good,
it's mostly about the women is more the healing the stress from the inside out, but the negotiation stuff that I do is for men and women and focuses like on law firms and tech companies and stuff like that. So I don't exclude the men, but the women's stuff is because just what I went through as a young mother, being a new attorney with my own law firm. So
I bet.
Anyway,
awesome.
I just wanted to add that to the picture so the guys don't go, well, it's not about me today.
That's
yes,
right.
it is.
It's not about me. Because then we just kind of tune out. It's not about us, right?
Right. We do.
So I'm going to ask you my favorite question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I guess one of the best pieces of advice I've ever received is that I'm not my feelings, because we can be feeling happy, sad, grief-stricken, just terrorized with stress or whatever. I'm like a soul having an experience in this human form. And, the feelings don't define who I am, and they're not really who I am. They're just something I'm here to experience and move through to be like more of my best self.
Oh, I like that. And how do you apply that? I'm sure it means a lot to you. So how do you apply that in your daily work?
Well, I sort of work with this process called feeling is healing. And basically, it's just getting ourselves in a really heart-centered space where we're really grounded and fully present. And so whatever I feel, I just sort of just let it move through me. And then I will call in, love or kindness or patience or whatever really feels that I want to fill my body up with where that fear once was. And just, let it go and hopefully is usable energy for the planet. But however it works, it works. But because I think what I did a lot in my younger life is that I just tried to push all that stuff away. And then what would happen is that something would happen and all those fear-based feelings would come back and really, hit me in the head like a 2x4. And I thought, there's got to be a better way than this. Because I really wasn't taught how to deal with that kind of stuff when I was growing up. I wasn't taught how to deal with unpleasant feelings. And so it's a way that I've learned, and the more I apply it, the better it seems to get, like anything,
Yeah, I like that. And it's helpful because we do have we bring a lot into every situation, our past. If we don't know how to deal with the things that have happened to us, like you said, learn to forgive that little self in us that's been hurt by things in the past. We just keep bringing up in different relationships over and over again.
Right. So it's a fun way to heal. And it's also, another way we can do this that might resonate with your audience is that sometimes I just say, well, how old is this person inside of me? Is she 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 15-year-old Arlene? And I turn around and I hug her and I love her because I find that most of us are really good about doing that with other people, but not so good about doing it with ourselves. So it took practice. It really, at first, it felt really weird and like I was like being fake. But I find that when I really love these bits of myself, they sort of like, they're still there inside of me. They're still a part of me. Then everything sort of like chills out. And, I get that same sort of healing space as well.
So let's talk about your journey because I'm curious. You have an
Okay.
incredible career from law to holistic counseling to leadership coaching. Kind of walk us through what inspired those transitions and how do they connect to the current work you're doing now?
Well, it really wasn't exactly a transition. It was like one sort of synchronistic event after another. But when I was 15 years old, I announced to my family, I just had this inspiration, I'm going to be an attorney. And they sort of looked at me like, yeah, really? Okay. But I did. I got a BA in political science. I went to law school in my home state of Kentucky, got my diploma, my degree, my JD or whatever it's called, and I started practicing law. I've worked for other attorneys for about 3 years, and then I opened my own law firm when I was 29, a solo practice in a suburb of Cleveland. Sold it when my son was 9, and moved to Longmont, Colorado, to be in a small partnership. Um, and so I've been both a family law attorney, which was really hard for me because I came from a really suburban, two-parent, no one got divorced in my community kind of family, and then to deal with people that had alcohol and drug problems and kids that, should they be with these parents or not? It was really it was hard, and the legal system when it comes to dealing with families is less than stellar when you have parents that aren't competent to be parents or are not getting along with how the children should be raised or how much time each should have. So it was really difficult. And so I did that for 12 years, and then I went into commercial law, which is about which I help businesses collect their debts. I think that people should be paid for their services and products, and I found that really fun. There was business meetings all over the country. These people became like my family. I got to collect money and settle things for people. I got to do what I loved, which is I got to negotiate on the phone, and I also got to travel and market my company. And I guess where it all started, what was I felt that there was a real gap in the law with how a lot of attorneys treated people, whether they were their clients, whether they were the opposing counsel, whether they were someone like I. A lot of people that I dealt with were businessmen and women who had fallen on hard times and couldn't pay their bills. And I was kind of appalled by how a lot of they scripted collection agencies to talk to people because they were sending us business, law firms were sending us business, and so I just felt that part of my mission was an attorney was to teach people treat people with dignity and respect. And, if they were rude or obnoxious to me, I still had the whole legal system behind me, but I was gonna give them the benefit of the doubt, and most people were so grateful. They were traumatized, something had happened, they had miscalculated things, they weren't bad people, they just couldn't pay all of their bills. So, I felt really grateful then to be in the practice of law, to be in that kind of commercial area of law, and I hope I made a mark there somewhere. And about, I don't know, 6 years before we sold our business, I was a practicing attorney for a little bit over 31 years. Now I'm retired from that, but I'm still licensed. I still have my preeminent status that kind of follows me for the rest of my life, thank goodness. But I had really amazing women in my life, and one started her own coaching school. She had gotten certified. Another started her own counseling school, and another had come to college in the U.S. and they did a lot of meditation and stuff like that. And she was also from Australia, and she was facilitating, how to be a meditation facilitator. And I just realized that I was stressed out. I had a husband then. We had a small staff. I had a son to raise, and I was a working mom, and there was a lot going on. And so and I also really came to the realization with my friend's help, who was a coach already, with like the International Coaching Federation, that my listening skills were less than stellar. I thought they were great. They were not. I wasn't taught how to listen. It's a skill to know how to, probably as a reverend, you know how to sit with people and really ask, powerful questions, reflect back, be empathetic, how to really listen to someone without thinking about what you're going to say when they're talking and bringing the conversation back to you. I didn't have any of those skills. I didn't realize it. And so I got my diploma in coaching and mentoring then. And then one of my friends, I just felt like, the counseling degree that I got from Australia, I can't apply it in the US unless I get my master's in counseling. So I was like, I don't want to do that, but I want the skills. So I really felt that the counseling gave it to me from the other end, because counseling's different from coaching. You can delve into the past, you can explore someone's history. Coaching is more the present and the future. And I thought, I could really use those skills too. And so I did that. And then I was like, I need to, I have always avoided meditating, because I thought I couldn't do it. I'm too much type A. I'm too much on the, what's it? The right side of my brain. Is that the one that thinks all the time? And it really helped both all of these 3 helped to balance me out, with the masculine and the feminine and the right and the left side of the brain. And I found out that with meditation, you don't have to sit there and go, you can go for a walk in nature, really slow, enjoying the beauty around you. And I slowly worked up to be able to do things longer. But I think people have a misconception about, how healthy meditation can be. It can be simply, you can be out in your garden loving the plants you're planting and watering, and just being really still and enjoying a beautiful tree in your backyard. It's a form of meditation. So, yeah, I did all those things, and then I just really felt like, and I had a small, I was doing some coaching on the side. I just felt like I'd had enough, that I'd done everything I could do in law, and, I had already formed Jewel Consultancy, but it was very kind of like on the side kind of thing, and so we sold our business, and, we sold it to our associates, and they kept it going, doing a great job, and so that's my story.
I love that. So tell us about what was your mission at Jewel Consulting? I'm just kind of curious what led up to you starting that company, and what were you trying to accomplish as a vision for that?
I have to be really honest, I don't know, I didn't know what my frigging vision was when I first started out. I'm just like, I love coaching, I love mentoring, there's gotta be something here, and it's been a process, why I love to work with women, like, especially train that, stress and anxious and overwhelm into more serenity, but I do work with men with it now too, is that it was really stressful. At 29, I opened my own law firm. I was a solo practitioner. I was sharing office space with a couple of attorneys, an employment agency, and this pastor who had decided that he didn't like working within the structure of the politics of churches, and was selling collection packages to businesses and wanted me to be the attorney that they could turn to if it didn't work out with the letters. And I said, sure. So but I was, there weren't computers back then. There weren't anything, So I had a secretary in an office, and then I found out a month into it I was pregnant. So I'm like, and my ex-husband was doing his residency to be a doctor, so he was flat out, 70 hours a week, no sleep. And I was like, how am I gonna do this? All my tribe is in Louisville, Kentucky, my parents, his parents, my friends, my colleagues. So I know what it feels like to be under stress and to start something new. And, I really just wanted to give back. A lot of women are, they love their work, but they love their family too. So how do you balance it all? And I don't even know if you can balance. It's more like finding harmony within yourself and how you do things. But that's how I got started with that, and the negotiation and stuff that I do to help people be better listeners. Because a lot of law firms and tech companies, there's a lot of high stress jobs, and they put thousands and thousands of dollars into training people, and then they leave because they don't know how to listen to them. They don't know how to provide a lifestyle that's conducive to doing the work that you love and being there for your family. And so that's sort of how I got into, but it took time. It wasn't like, "Oh, I know." I didn't know. So I don't wanna tell people that wanna start their own business that you have to know everything. I think it's a process.
Yes, good, because we sometimes get the impression that everybody starts a business has this big, bold vision, and they have a clear 5-point objectives, and they have a 5-year plan. Sometimes you start something and you let the momentum of whatever you're doing, whatever takes traction, guide you into the next step. So yeah, it's good to know that you don't always have to have it all figured out before you start something.
I don't understand people who are like that. That just I can't. I'm like, how do you do that? Because even writing those business plans gives me a headache. I would rather because I feel like if you flow from your heart and you sort of take one small step forward at a time, you're going to be a different person, have a different business by the end of the year. And for me, it's a lot less stressful. How can I possibly know everything before I even start? I don't know who. I don't. I'm really curious about how people really do that.
I don't know either because it's not me either. I kind of like I love to know where I'm going. It makes me less anxious, but I always know where I'm going. So
Right. I mean, I have a feeling idea, but I don't really know how it's all gonna play out.
right. I want to go back to something we started this conversation out with. This idea of leading oneself with compassion. And I think part of what you talk about that you do is you help people to be compassionate with the voices or the feelings that they are dealing with. How does that work as you work with people in practice, especially with the leadership?
Well, I mean, we all have things that we learned in childhood. I mean, I think we all do that just weren't helpful because our parents I mean, my parents were wonderful. I love them. They were fantastic. They were very supportive of me. They did so much for me. I can't even begin to say. And they were raised by their parents, and so we all come up with quirks that just don't work anymore or the voices in our head of what we can do or what we can't do, and a lot of it's a lot of negative self-talk. And so the first thing is just to recognize that we have that self-talk and it's not helpful. It's not about love, it's not about compassion, and when we can start to learn how to I mean, I always say that we have to fill our own cup up with love and share the overflow with other people, because otherwise we're going to be like a well run dry and we're going to get frustrated, angry, take it out on other people, feel guilty, and start the cycle again. So I think sometimes a lot of people are compassionate and kind, but maybe it's been taught out of them as a professional or an executive, and they have to really be brought back to it. That is, this is a profitable way to be. Sometimes you have to approach people like that because, for example, teaching, or facilitating something where professionals and executives learn how to listen with compassion and with kindness for themselves and for whoever they're talking to, and not jump in and try to change and do the power over and make it about them and lay down the law. They're going to find that economically, your situation is going to improve because people will feel understood, will feel heard, and they will want to stay. And a lot of people that I work with, they can first learn how to apply it to others, and then we can say, well, how can we apply it to your life to make you feel, more calm and loving and enjoying your life and let a lot of that stress and anxiety go. Because then they have an example in front of them. Oh, I can do it for other people and look at the benefits to myself and my company. Because that's people are still greatly influenced by their bottom line, and that gives them the impetus. But when they really get the experience of how different it is, we have long term relationships instead of just doing something and getting your way and then, who knows where it goes. They can feel and see the benefits and then begin to be willing to apply it to themselves.
I talk to a lot of people who work with leaders, especially high level leaders. And one of the things I hear a lot is we don't do a great job, especially leaders at high levels, of having emotional intelligence to understand the people that we're called to kind of oversee, manage, lead, guide. How do you help executives create a more compassionate, kind environment, workplace for their employees?
Well, it really depends where they're coming from. They have to be I think a lot of executives have a lot of and professionals have a lot of stress on them. They're higher up in the company, they're more responsible for the bottom line, and that's why I was talking about the bottom line to begin with. If they see statistically or looking at their company records how much money they've lost in the past 3 to 5 years by people leaving because they weren't giving them what they needed and how much it costs to retrain and how much the company is losing because of that. That's just one example. at first they might be more willing to do it because it's economic. And then as I was sharing, then you can go then you can weave in the personal and the stuff that would really help them to be a different person, but just to hit them with that initially can be like, a big wall. It really depends on the person. And also it's just not them alone for most people. Most of these people are from medium to large size companies, and they're not the only voice. So they have to work with all these other voices that, there's a lot of same things. So in order to make a change, it has to be, working within the system in a way that, they don't just slam the door in your face and you can actually get in and do some good, which is what they're really looking for. I don't know if I'm making any sense here, but you gotta take people from where they're at, and how they are presenting on the outside and how they have to be in business is not necessarily how they are truly in the inside, but they're sort of stuck in a system, and I need to give them a way to help open the doors for that.
I love that. You mentioned that you do work a lot with women.
I do.
And what are some of the common challenges that the women are experiencing today that you try to help them to process in your work?
I don't think it's that well, when I was growing up, my mom's parents were very poor, and so she sort of reached middle class when she married my father, and they both got college educations. I don't think either sets of parents maybe my father's father did. Um, and so she had made it by being able to be a stay-at-home mom, and she did worked a lot of the financial stuff for my father's company and stuff. But a lot of women don't have that choice today, not with the economics of the country. So, you know, s a lot of the professional and executive women I work with, they love what they do, but they're also torn. They might have a partner, they might be single, a lot of them have children, or they have parents that are aging, and a lot of those responsibilities still fall on women. We're we you know, I really feel that I mean, in my ideal world, men and women walk hand in hand as equals, and we use the strengths and gifts of both working together, but that's not how the world always is. And so they feel torn, and so it's like make a way to find out, if they have the money to do some things to, help take care of things. When my son was young, I got a babysitter. He was, really talented in chess, and I live in Longmont, Colorado, and Fort Collins is about 45 minutes down the road, and that's the, expert who he was taking chess lessons from, and I got someone to drive him, because all it really was to drive him and drive him back. So I found ways to be able to still be a mom because I was my own entrepreneur and still have help. We had the money to have someone clean our house. So if they have money, we talk about that. If they don't, what are your priorities? How do you want to do things? And I think a lot of women, they just need a tribe. I really believe that we're better together. And if you hear that your problems aren't, you know, they're just not yours, then it's a better situation. And one example is I'm a member of the Colorado Women's Bar Association. I'm the only grandmother there. And, once a year, they have, like, a mother's gathering, and I thought, "I'm a grandmother, I don't care, I'm going to this." And we were all at round tables, and, there was different cards you could pick, and you would talk about something, and we would share stuff. And, oh my god, it was so amazing. And, because, everyone, even the judges that were there's quite a few judges that are a member of the Colorado Women's Bar, they have kids, they have responsibilities, and, it's not easy. And just to be heard and understood by your peers is huge, because then you know that you're not alone, and if other people can do it, I can do it. I know there's something really, really comforting about that.
When I talk to people who are trying to balance, especially women trying to balance the workforce, home, mom situation, they talk a lot about mommy guilt. Um, how do I make sure that I have enough time for myself, but still take on the responsibilities of mom, wife, husband, provider? How do you help women process that it's okay to even talk about the whole idea of meditation and mindfulness? How do you get them to give themselves permission to say, yeah, this is good for you, healthy for you to be able to take that
Right.
time for yourself?
Well, of course, there's a difference between mentoring them and coaching them. With coaching them, I'm allowed to talk things out and see where they wanna go. Mentoring, I can share. But it's a lot of what I just shared, a lot of us, there's that, guilt feeling that I'm doing something wrong, that I'm not being there for them all the time. And, you know, when we find ways to fill our own cup with love. With me, I was a runner when I was young, and now I do yoga. That was a way that I did my own little private time. Some of my women friends, like to do pottery, whatever it is, if you don't give that to yourself, you're gonna be an empty cup, and then you're gonna act in ways that you feel bad about, and you will take things out on other people. So we've gotta take care of ourselves. And I have found that more I take care of myself, the better of a mom that I can be. Now, my son didn't always agree when I was growing up, and, but now that he's a father of his own son, sees things a lot differently. So, we can't please all people all the time. It's impossible. People are going to be upset with us, but I find that if we do our best to be a loving, compassionate person, it's a lot easier if there's self care, and it doesn't have to take that long. When I was a runner, I could leave the house, go run for a half an hour, come back, and do what needed to be done. So, or even if you're walking around the block or for half an hour with your dog, there's ways to handle it. And I'll give you a great example. During the school year when I like drive to go do yoga in the morning because I do my own hours as a coach. There's always this woman. She has 4 children. She's a runner. She has 2 in the push buggy thing sitting there. She has 1 kid riding the bike in front of her, 1 kid riding the bike behind her, and that's how she goes to and from school every day for her kids. So she gets her exercise. I'm like, "You go, girl." I never would have thought of that. But, there are ways to make it happen. And, you know, when I was a runner, a lot of my friends that I ran with were mothers. We went to a rec center. Our kids were in the daycare part of that rec center together playing, while we ran for 45 minutes. They were fine, we were fine. So there's ways to make it happen, to take care of ourselves, in a way that everyone's provided for.
That's great. If you could think of for someone who's feeling overwhelmed right now, feeling like life is just closing in on them, what is one practical step you would recommend they take today to start creating a life that works for them?
Oh my gosh. Well, I do find, sometimes we just need outside help, like a counselor or a coach or something like that. Or I'm sure you talk to people as well as a reverend to help. Sometimes people just need a listening ear in order to step forward. But I find that, even if you have kids, you know, turning off their little iPads and cell phones and yours and going out in the backyard and playing with them or, going on a walk with them or going to the park where you're out in nature. I find nature is so healing. If you're at some park and they're running around screaming and yelling, they're getting out their energy too. So there's a way to let go, and we need to get away from the computerized stuff and do that. And, even when you're out there, you can just go, I'm so grateful to be here because, another thing that we can do is just find little things to be grateful for. We don't have to wait to be grateful for something. You have a bed to sleep in, you have a roof over your head, you have hot running water, you have food in your fridge. We're going to make it. It feels stressful. There is a lot to do. I understand why you're overwhelmed, but sometimes these little things that we can do for ourselves, I call them like little intermezzos in life, like sorbet. When I was younger, I don't know, I don't do it anymore. I went to these big fancy restaurants. You'd have a beginning thing, you'd have an appetizer, something to clean your palate, and then something else. So it's a little sorbet to clean your palate in the middle of your busy day, and wherever that is, it doesn't have to take a long time, but find something that gets you away from the environment that's causing you stress and do something that good for you, good for your family, however you need to work that for yourself and then come back to it.
I like that. So, the title of this podcast is Becoming Bridge Builders. I'm curious for you, as you work with leaders, how could they become bridge builders in their organizations or communities? And what would that mean for you being a bridge builder?
Well, I hope um, that I can help people build bridges so that they can communicate better with themselves and with the people around them in a way that really nurtures everybody. And so a way that people, really have to take people where they're at. Where are you now? Where would you like to be, by the end of our time together, however long we're working together. And lots of times I like to work in groups because there's a lot of synergy in groups. And, and how will it feel different on the other side? Because there's a lot of wisdom in, I don't know if I'm answering your question fully, but if you visualize and know that you're already on the other side of where you want to be, it's a lot easier to get there than putting all those roadblocks in our minds. So I guess that's how I help people to be bridge builders for themselves, knowing that the future is already happening, it's already possible. Let's visualize it, let's feel it, let's know it's already so, and then begin to feel and decide how we're going to make that happen.
I like that. So I love to ask my guests this question. What do you want your legacy to be?
I saw that question and it's like, um, that's the one I really had to think about. And I mean, quite frankly, I'm not famous. I don't really care if anyone remembers me, but I feel that all of us make like an imprint on humanity when we're here. And so I guess what I would love my imprint on humanity to be is that one, we're better together, and two, you know, when we listen to each other with the whole heart and we're not trying to bring it back to ourselves, or we're not trying to show how much we know, we're just listening and then taking the conversation from there. The people feel heard and understood. That's a way to really harmonize relationships between people and groups, and to make this world a better place.
I love it. So on season 6 of the podcast, we have something new, a surprise question. Pick a number between
Okay.
1 and 10 for your surprise question.
Number 8.
Number 8. What book belongs on everyone's shelf?
Oh my goodness. It depends on whether it's from my child or not. I really love, Richard Bach. I know he's a little bit out there as an author, and I've read, I think, all of his books. I think the one I reread most recently was Illusions, where he was it was like back, I don't know, in the 40s or 50s, he was a little pilot, and he was going from town to town and giving people rides around so that he could be his own entrepreneur and he didn't have to rely on anybody, and, met this guy that was like became his mentor, and learned more about life and what's important, and, how he could carry on this guy's legacy, and, so yeah, I like that book. I don't know if I have a favorite book of all time, but I did reread that one recently.
Oh, cool. Well, Arlene, is there anything we haven't covered that we should have covered?
No, I think we covered a lot. I always have a quote I like to share. It's
Sure.
not mine. I think it might have been Richard Bach, who it's attributed to. A mentor of mine shared it with me, and I use it a lot in my life, and that's, um, "Any any disaster can become a blessing. Any blessing can become a disaster, and there's always a better way." So, if we got a blessing, work with it and don't piddle away so it's nothing. If it's a disaster, you can turn it around to something that's really wonderful. A lot of people in horrible situations have done that when something happened to their kids and they made a foundation. And if we're always evolving and growing, we're gonna find better ways to do things
I
and to
love that.
experience
Love
life.
it. Arlene, thank you for sharing your wisdom and your insights with us today. For those who want to learn more about your work, connect with you, and explore Jewel Consultancy, where can they find you online?
Well, if you Google Arlene Cohen Miller, you can find all the places on social media I am located, and also just come to Jewel Consultancy. I guess that'll be in the notes somewhere. It's Jewel and then Consultancy, and my phone number's there, my email address there. I don't hide that. So if you can text me and let me know that Dr. Is it Fanny? Am I
Haney.
pronounced your last name right? Haney. I'm sorry. Yeah. That's not. You can't know that from reading something online. So sorry about that. That we had this conversation, so I'll know who you are, and I'm happy to text or whatever or chat and take it from there.
Thank you. Yeah, my last name is Irish, so if you're not familiar with
Oh, really?
it, you can't tell by my look I'm Irish. But anyway,
No, I guess no, you can't. But we all, I think my son did one of those genetic things. I didn't want to do it, but I was really surprised. Um, all my genetic links all over the place. So it was interesting. We just don't know.
We just don't know. And for our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Becoming Bridge Builders. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, leave us a review. Until next time, keep building bridges that bring people together and create lasting impact. Arlene, thanks so much for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Do you know that most entrepreneurs hit a revenue ceiling and have no idea why? They're working harder, spending more money, running more ads, but revenue stays flat. My friend Dr. Noah St. John calls this the invisible break. He's giving our listeners a free revenue ceiling audit to help you see what's really holding you back. You'll get a free 30-day membership to NoahBot, giving you access to Dr. Noah's 30 years of experience to help you reach your next level. But hurry, because there's only 50 available this month. So if you're tired of being stuck at the same revenue level and want to finally break through, get your free revenue ceiling audit at drnoahvault.com in the affiliate link that'll be listed in the show notes.
Thanks for listening to Becoming Bridge Builder. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help support the podcast, please subscribe and share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at bkeithaney and on Getter and Twitter at RevHeadpin. Thanks again, and tune in next time.